My name is Irene, 34 years old, and recently promoted to vice president at my financial firm in Chicago. After 12 years of endless work hours and sacrifices, I finally achieved major success. Then I saw my parents' Facebook post announcing I would fund our family vineyard revival. My brother Bradley had run it into massive debt while driving a luxury SUV. At our annual family reunion, they ambushed me with a folder and asked for $200,000 in front of everyone. If you know what it feels like when family expects your hard-earned money, let me know where you are watching from, and subscribe to hear what happened when I showed up with photos of my new mountain cabin instead of a checkbook. The Hartwell family vineyard spans 30 acres in Napa Valley, California. My grandparents established it in 1983, pouring their life savings into what became their legacy. Growing up, the vineyard was the center of our family universe. Every decision, every conversation, every milestone celebration happened among those rows of grapes that stretched toward the mountains. From the time I was 8 years old, my summers were spent working in that vineyard. I learned to prune vines, check soil conditions, and eventually help with the harvest. My hands would be stained purple for weeks after crushing season. My parents made sure I understood the value of hard work, which I appreciated. What I did not appreciate was watching my younger brother Bradley receive entirely different treatment. Bradley, 3 years younger than me, was groomed for ownership from the beginning. While I was assigned actual work, he shadowed my father, learning the business aspects. He was the golden child, the son who would someday inherit the family legacy. The contrast in our treatment became more obvious as we entered our teenage years. When Bradley turned 16, my parents gifted him a brand new Ford truck, custom painted with the Vineyard logo on the doors. When my 16th birthday arrived 6 months earlier, I received a 10-year-old bicycle that had previously belonged to my cousin. My parents explained that the truck was an investment in the Vineyard future, as Bradley would need reliable transportation to make deliveries and meet with distributors. Meanwhile, I could pedal to my after-school job at the local grocery store. The pattern continued through high school. Bradley was encouraged to take business classes and wine appreciation courses. I excelled academically, but received minimal acknowledgement. When college application season arrived, my parents spent thousands on a consultant to help Bradley get into the prestigious viticulture program at UC Davis. I researched scholarships alone at the public library computer after closing hours at my job. Bradley dropped out of college during his sophomore year, claiming he needed to help run the vineyard. My parents accepted this without question. Meanwhile, I worked 3 jobs to put myself through business school at a state university. I lived on ramen noodles and shared a tiny apartment with 3 roommates to save money. My parents rarely asked about my studies, but called weekly to update me on how Bradley was revolutionizing the vineyard operations. When Bradley officially took over operations at 23, my parents invested $80,000 in new equipment he insisted would improve production. That same year, I graduated with honors, but could not afford the gas money to drive home for the ceremony. No one from my family attended. I made the decision to move to Chicago at 22 after securing an entry-level financial position. The starting salary was barely enough to live on, but it offered potential for growth that staying in my hometown could never provide. The distance provided perspective on my family dynamics that had been impossible to see from within. My career progression required immense sacrifice. For 12 years, I dedicated myself fully to climbing the corporate ladder. I enrolled in a night MBA program that meant studying until 2 a.m. After full workdays, I took on extra projects nobody wanted. I moved 5 times to progressively smaller apartments in worse neighborhoods to save money. I went without health insurance for 3 years to afford my student loan payments. Every promotion came through relentless effort, not luck or favoritism. During those 12 years, my contact with my family remained minimal. Holiday visits were brief and uncomfortable, centered almost exclusively around vineyard talk. My accomplishments were acknowledged with quick congratulations before conversation returned to Bradley's newest expansion ideas or equipment purchases. I learned to keep my life private, sharing little about my growing success or the recognition I was beginning to receive in my industry. My recent promotion to Vice President of Investment Strategy came with a significant salary increase and substantial bonus structure. For the first time in my adult life, I experienced true financial stability. After years of deprivation, I allowed myself to dream about actually enjoying the fruits of my labor. I researched investment properties and found a small mountain cabin 2 hours outside Chicago. The property needed work but offered solitude and appreciation potential. I began the purchase process, excited to finally have something that was truly mine. Little did I know that my family had already made plans for my money without bothering to consult me. The morning after my promotion was announced at work, I woke to 5 congratulatory texts from hometown friends. Initially, I felt touched that news had traveled so quickly. Then I opened the messages and realized something was wrong. Each text mentioned the Vineyard revival and my generosity. Confused, I opened Facebook to investigate. My father rarely posted on social media, preferring to share photos of vineyard sunsets or harvest celebrations once every few months. His most recent post featured a photo of me, at age 12, stomping grapes in a harvest barrel. The caption read, "So proud of our daughter Irene and her VP promotion at Anderson Financial Partners in Chicago. Perfect timing, as she will be helping resurrect our family legacy. Hartwell Vineyard's renaissance begins this summer. Family stepping up when needed most." My hands shook as I navigated to my mother's Instagram account. She had posted a similar message alongside a childhood photo of me and Bradley, sitting on the Vineyard tractor. "Congratulations to our successful daughter on her big promotion. The Vineyard has been waiting for her return, and now she will help bring it back to its former glory." Bradley and Irene, the dynamic duo, reunited for Hartwell Vineyard's rebirth. 34 comments followed from family members and town acquaintances, all praising my apparent family loyalty and generous spirit. Distant relatives I barely remembered from childhood thanked me for preserving the family legacy. High school classmates commented on how they always knew I would make it big and come back to save the Vineyard. Everyone seemed to know about my plans except for me. I tried calling my parents immediately, but received no answer. I sent text messages asking for clarification. Hours later, my mother responded with a vague, "We will discuss everything at the reunion next month." "So excited to see you, sweetheart." 4 attempts to call over the next 2 days resulted in brief, evasive conversations where my parents changed the subject whenever I mentioned the social media posts. Then came the email from my Aunt Patricia, expressing gratitude for my generous contribution to the Vineyard revival and suggesting we discuss her son's potential employment during my upcoming visit. She attached photos of her 24-year-old son, who had just been released from his 3rd rehab stint, and mentioned how working at the Vineyard would keep him on the straight and narrow. My anxiety grew with each passing day. Sleep became impossible as I lay awake, imagining confrontations and calculating financial impacts. I found myself stress-eating for the first time since college, consuming entire pints of ice cream while researching wine industry economics after midnight. The promotion that should have represented freedom had somehow become a trap. The family reunion was scheduled for 3 weeks later, an annual tradition held at the Vineyard every summer. I considered making an excuse to skip it, but realized the situation would only worsen without direct intervention. Whatever expectations my family had created needed immediate correction. My internal conflict intensified as I recalled childhood memories. The Vineyard had once represented security and belonging before becoming a symbol of favoritism and rejection. Part of me still craved my parents' approval, while the adult in me recognized the unhealthy patterns at work. The financial professional in me suspected serious money problems beneath the sudden interest in my career advancement. I decided to research the Vineyard current status before the reunion. Online reviews showed a steady decline in ratings over the past 5 years. The website had not been updated in 3 years and featured outdated contact information. Social media accounts showed sporadic posting with minimal engagement. Local business listings, revealed reduced operating hours and the cancellation of events that had once been Vineyard traditions. Instead of flying to California as originally planned, I decided to drive. The 26-hour journey would give me time to think, and having my own vehicle would ensure independence during my stay. I packed professional clothes for the reunion, alongside hiking boots and jeans for the cabin shopping trip I had scheduled afterward. I needed to maintain perspective about my priorities regardless of family pressure. I also assembled a folder containing my own financial records, bank statements showing my hard-earned savings, the cabin purchase agreement in process, and a detailed budget reflecting my personal financial goals. If my family wanted to discuss money, I would be prepared with facts rather than emotions. 12 years of financial discipline had taught me the importance of clear boundaries, especially when it came to mixing family and finances. The drive to California was long but clarifying. With each passing state, my resolve strengthened. I had earned my success through relentless effort and sacrifice. Whatever crisis my brother had created was not my responsibility to fix. With this mindset, I pulled into the Vineyard driveway, noticing immediately how much had changed since my last visit 2 years ago. I arrived at Hartwell Vineyard on Friday afternoon, immediately noticing the signs of neglect that marketing photos had carefully avoided. The iconic entry arch sagged with peeling paint, and weeds pushed through the gravel driveway. The tasting room windows were dirty, with a handwritten by appointment only sign taped to the door despite the published opening hours. Several rows of vines appeared undernourished, their leaves yellowing prematurely in the summer heat. The equipment barn door stood open, revealing dusty machinery that appeared unused for months. 2 employees half-heartedly trimmed vines in the nearest section, both wearing expressions of resigned frustration. Neither looked up as I parked my modest sedan next to 3 other vehicles, including a brand-new Lincoln Navigator with custom wheels that I immediately recognized as likely belonging to Bradley. My suspicion was confirmed moments later when my brother emerged from the main house, designer sunglasses perched on his perfectly styled hair. His casual greeting came with a dismissive once-over of my travel-worn appearance and practical vehicle. "Finally decided to grace us with your presence," Bradley said, twirling his car keys around one finger. "Must be nice taking 2 weeks off whenever you want. Some of us actually work for a living." The irony of his statement while standing beside his $60,000 SUV was not lost on me, but I chose diplomacy for our first interaction. The drive gave me time to think. "The Vineyard looks different from what I remember." "Economic realities," he replied with a shrug. "You would understand if you were in the agricultural business instead of pushing papers in your cushy office. Not all of us can escape to the big city." His passive-aggressive jab set the tone for the welcome dinner that followed. Our parents had invited the extended family for what felt like a strategic gathering rather than a genuine reunion. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins filled the once gracious dining room that now showed signs of deferred maintenance. The chandelier had several burned-out bulbs, and water stains marked one corner of the ceiling. Throughout the meal, relatives made pointed comments that revealed how much misinformation had spread. Grandmother patted my hand and called me our Vineyard savior. Uncle Robert asked what tax benefits I would receive from investing in the family business. Cousin Sarah questioned whether I would commute from Chicago or build a new house on the property once I took over the financial side. Each comment received knowing nods from my parents, while Bradley studied his wine glass with exaggerated interest. "What exactly is $200,000 to someone making VP money anyway?" Aunt Margaret asked loudly during dessert. "Probably just one bonus check, right?" The room grew quiet as everyone awaited my response. I chose my words carefully. Every financial decision requires proper evaluation. I would need complete information about any potential investment. My mother quickly changed the subject to wedding plans for a distant cousin, but the damage was done. The expectation had been clearly established. I excused myself early, claiming travel fatigue while actually needing space to process my growing alarm. As I walked toward the guest cottage, I overheard Bradley arguing with someone on the phone near the production building. His voice carried in the evening air. "The 45,000 is coming, I told you. We have a solution now, so stop threatening to contact the board. You will get paid next week." He slammed his phone down when he noticed me, quickly switching to a casual stance. "Supply chain issues," he offered without being asked. "Nothing for you to worry about." The following morning, I reconnected with Heather, a childhood friend who now worked as operations manager at a neighboring vineyard. We met for coffee in town, away from family ears. Her insider perspective proved invaluable. "Everyone in the valley knows Bradley is running Hartwell into the ground," she confided after ensuring no one could overhear. "He fired Jefferson and Maria, the two most experienced staff members, when they questioned his decisions. Then, he invested 90,000 in an Italian bottling system nobody knows how to operate properly." She described his failed experiments with trendy wine varieties unsuited for the local soil conditions, resulting in 3 years of substandard vintages. Distributors had begun dropping Hartwell from their portfolios. Meanwhile, Bradley had understaffed crucial positions while creating a non-existent marketing director role for his girlfriend Amy, who had no industry experience but received a substantial salary. "The new boat he keeps at Lake Berryessa was purchased with Vineyard funds," Heather added, "and he flies to Las Vegas almost every weekend. The renovation on his house cost over $100,000 last year, while the production facility roof still leaks." Each revelation confirmed my suspicions. The Vineyard financial situation was likely far worse than whatever my parents planned to reveal. I thanked Heather and promised to stay in touch, then returned to face another day of family pressure. My parents employed their own avoidance tactics when I attempted direct questions. My father changed the subject repeatedly, steering conversation toward childhood memories and grandfather vision for the property. My mother emphasized family responsibility without addressing specific concerns. Both mastered the art of emotional manipulation, reminding me how the vineyard had paid for my school clothes and first car, conveniently forgetting that my car had been a 15-year-old hand-me-down requiring constant repairs. "Blood is thicker than water," my father repeated, whenever financial questions arose. "Family stands together in difficult times." I observed more troubling signs throughout the day. Bradley girlfriend Amy arrived wearing designer clothes and driving a new luxury sedan with Vineyard logo magnets hastily attached to the doors. She carried an expensive handbag while complaining about budget constraints preventing proper marketing materials. 3 vineyard workers shared a single set of pruning tools because replacements had not been purchased. The wine inventory in the cellar showed alarming gaps, with premium vintages mysteriously missing despite sales records indicating they had not been sold. By Saturday evening, I had compiled mental notes of numerous discrepancies. The family seemed to exist in an alternate reality where the vineyard temporary difficulties would be solved with my money, after which everything would magically return to prosperity. No one acknowledged the systematic mismanagement visible everywhere I looked. Sunday brunch would bring the formal financial discussion I had been dreading. I prepared myself for what promised to be an uncomfortable confrontation, knowing that standing firm would likely damage relationships, but potentially save my family from even greater financial disaster. Sunday brunch had been a family tradition since my childhood. Grandmother would prepare Belgian waffles, while grandfather told stories about the early vineyard days. Now, with 18 family members gathered around the expanded dining table, the event felt more like a business meeting than a nostalgic ritual. The usual laughter and overlapping conversations were replaced by an undercurrent of expectation and strategic seating arrangements that positioned me directly across from my parents and Bradley. My father waited until the coffee was served before tapping his spoon against his water glass. The room fell silent as he stood, adopting the ceremonial pose I recognized from countless vineyard events. "Before everyone departs, we have important family business to discuss," he began, his eyes finding mine. "As most of you know, Hartwell Vineyards has faced some significant challenges in recent years. Market conditions, climate complications, and necessary modernization have created financial pressures." My mother nodded supportively, while Bradley examined his manicured fingernails. I noticed several relatives exchanging knowing glances. Providence works in mysterious ways, my father continued. Just as these challenges peak, our daughter Irene achieves remarkable success in the financial world. Her expertise and resources arrive at the perfect moment to preserve our family legacy. He gestured to my mother, who produced a glossy folder emblazoned with a newly designed Vineyard logo. She slid it across the table toward me with a practiced smile. We require a $200,000 investment to implement our revival strategy, my father announced to the room, rather than to me directly. With Irene financial support and Bradley operational genius, Hartwell Vineyards will not only survive, but thrive beyond previous heights. I opened the folder to find marketing materials rather than actual financial statements. Colorful graphs showed projected growth with no underlying data. Artistic renderings depicted a renovated tasting room and visitor center. The only numbers appeared on the final page. A request for $200,000 with vague terms for repayment from future profits. The projections indicate 300% return within 2 years, Bradley interjected, leaning forward. This is not charity. It is an investment opportunity we are offering to family first, before seeking outside capital. My mother touched my arm gently. We have already invested heavily ourselves. Your father and I have made 3 loans from our retirement funds, totaling $230,000. We believe in the vision completely. This revelation startled me. My parents were in their early 60s and had modest retirement savings. Risking their financial security escalated the situation from annoying to alarming. We approached Regional Bank for additional funding, my father added, but current banking regulations make loans difficult despite our property collateral. Translation: the bank refused them due to existing liens or poor credit history. My aunt nodded vigorously from across the table. Your grandfather built this vineyard from nothing. He would roll in his grave if we lost it now when salvation is within reach. The emotional manipulation continued from all directions. Uncle Robert reminded me how I had learned to ride a bike on the vineyard paths. Cousin William suggested the investment could be my legacy for future generations. Grandmother wiped tears while describing how proud grandfather would be of my contribution. Bradley delivered the most cutting comment, cloaked in a brotherly smile. It is not like you earned that promotion yourself, sis. Right place, right time, right connections. Some of us create real products from the earth, rather than shuffling money between accounts. The least you can do is share your good fortune. The room grew quiet, awaiting my response. 18 pairs of eyes fixed on me, with expectations ranging from enthusiasm to judgment. I felt the weight of family history pressing down, threatening to crush my hard-won independence. I closed the folder deliberately before speaking. I appreciate the detailed presentation. To properly evaluate any investment opportunity, I will need complete financial records for the past 5 years, current debt obligations, tax filings, and operational costs. I request 72 hours to review this information before discussing terms. The reasonable business request landed like a bomb in the emotionally charged atmosphere. My father's face flushed red while my mother's mouth formed a small, disappointed circle. Bradley scoffed loudly. We are family, not a bank loan committee, he snapped. Either you believe in us or you do not. I believe in due diligence, I replied evenly. $200,000 represents years of my work and sacrifice. I would review the numbers just as thoroughly for any investment. An uncomfortable silence descended over the table. My father finally broke it with a tight smile that did not reach his eyes. Of course you should review everything. Bradley will provide whatever documentation you need. The conversation shifted to safer topics, but the damage was done. Sideways glances and whispered comments followed me for the remainder of the meal. I had failed to provide the immediate, enthusiastic financial commitment they had expected. In challenging the narrative, I had become the villain in the family story. As everyone dispersed after brunch, I overheard my grandmother comment to my aunt, "The city has changed her. Money matters more than blood now." The irony was painful. Money had always mattered in our family dynamics, but only when it flowed in approved directions. My request for financial transparency had somehow become evidence of disloyalty rather than responsible stewardship. I retreated to the guest cottage to prepare for the detailed financial review, knowing that what I would discover would likely destroy any illusion of an easy resolution. The Vineyard problems ran deeper than anyone was willing to admit, and addressing them would require more than money. It would demand honesty and accountability that my family seemed determined to avoid. Monday morning, I requested access to the Vineyard financial records. Bradley initially claimed they were being updated by the accountant, but relented when I insisted. The Vineyard bookkeeper, Angela, a nervous woman in her 50s who had worked for my family for over a decade, reluctantly provided access to the system after receiving authorization from my parents. "I just enter the numbers they give me," she explained defensively before leaving me alone with the computer. "I have suggested better tracking systems, but management prefers the current methods." 4 hours of forensic accounting revealed the disturbing truth. Hartwell Vineyards was not facing temporary challenges but systematic financial collapse. Total debt exceeded $420,000, more than double what my parents had admitted. Unpaid vendor invoices dated back 18 months. Equipment leases showed 3 months of missed payments with default notices attached. The production facility needed over $100,000 in critical repairs that had been repeatedly deferred. Most alarming were the unpaid payroll taxes, creating an additional $85,000 liability, plus accumulating penalties. The IRS had sent multiple warnings that had apparently been ignored. This tax liability alone could trigger property seizure regardless of any investment I might make. I contacted Jessica, a college friend who now worked as a wine industry consultant. Her video call assessment was blunt after reviewing the numbers I shared. "This is not a $200,000 problem," she stated flatly. "Minimum investment for viable recovery would be $650,000, plus complete management overhaul. Even then, you would face 3 to 5 years of rebuilding distributor relationships and brand reputation." Further investigation revealed Bradley's pattern of financial manipulation. Equipment purchased with loan funds had later been sold for cash, with no accounting for the proceeds. Inventory shrinkage occurred regularly with premium wines. The books showed numerous personal expenses, categorized as business costs, vacations labeled as industry research, clothing as uniform expenses, and regular meals at expensive restaurants classified as client development. My parents had either remained willfully ignorant or actively participated in the deception. Their retirement accounts had indeed been drained, but the money had disappearing into the business without addressing structural problems. They were enabling Bradley financially, just as they had emotionally throughout our childhood. As I reviewed the financial disaster before me, memories of my own struggle for independence resurfaced. I recalled my tiny first apartment with 3 roommates, eating cup noodles for dinner to save money. I remembered studying at 4 a.m., before early work shifts, taking the bus in Chicago winters because I could not afford car repairs. Every dollar in my savings represented genuine sacrifice and discipline that my brother had never experienced. My emotional journey throughout the day cycled through guilt about the family legacy, anger at their entitlement, and finally clarity about the enabling pattern that had persisted for decades. The Vineyard problems stemmed not from market conditions but from fundamental management failures that my money would not fix. That evening, I spoke with the real estate agent handling my mountain cabin purchase. The property inspection had been completed successfully, and closing was scheduled for the following week. The $190,000 investment represented not just financial security, but also personal well-being, a retreat where I could recover from professional demands and build a life aligned with my values. "The cabin has excellent rental potential during seasons you are not using it," the agent explained. "We already have interest from potential summer renters if you decide to offset costs." The contrast between the Vineyard investment and my cabin could not have been starker. One represented a financial black hole with no clear recovery strategy. The other offered both personal enjoyment and sound financial returns. The decision became increasingly clear, despite the emotional complications. I spent Tuesday preparing documentation. I created a comprehensive financial analysis of the Vineyard current state, including a professional valuation of the property and business. Despite the operational issues, the land itself retained significant value, approximately $1.4 million, according to recent comparable sales in the region. A properly managed sale could pay all existing debts and provide my parents with secure retirement funds. I drafted a detailed proposal for Vineyard sale with projected financial outcomes for all family members. I assembled contact information for 3 reputable vineyard brokers specializing in distressed wine properties. I prepared a presentation addressing the emotional aspects alongside the financial realities. I also gathered photos and details of my mountain cabin, along with my personal investment strategy documents. If my family wanted to discuss my finances, I would provide complete transparency about my choices and priorities. Wednesday morning, I received a text from Bradley. Family meeting tonight to discuss your investment. 7 p.m. in the main house. Bring your checkbook. The presumptuous message reinforced my resolve to stand firm regardless of emotional pressure. As evening approached, I felt surprisingly calm. The facts supported my position completely. Whether my family would accept those facts remained uncertain, but I had done everything possible to prepare for what promised to be a difficult confrontation. Whatever happened, I would maintain financial independence that had been earned through years of discipline and sacrifice. I packed my presentation materials and cabin photos into my briefcase, along with a small album of family photographs spanning 3 generations at the Vineyard. The past deserved respect, but it could not dictate my financial future. With this mindset, I walked from the guest cottage to the main house as sunset painted the struggling vineyard in deceptively golden light. 7 o'clock found 10 family members gathered in what had once been grandfather's study. My parents sat side by side on the antique leather sofa, with Bradley standing behind them in a power position. Aunt Patricia and Uncle James occupied armchairs, while several cousins perched uncomfortably on chairs brought from the dining room. The staging felt deliberate, with me isolated in a straight-backed chair opposite the family tribunal. My father began with a practiced speech about legacy and obligation, using phrases that had clearly been rehearsed. The Vineyard has supported this family for 40 years. Now the family must support the Vineyard through temporary adversity. Bradley had prepared a digital presentation displayed on a tablet he passed around. It contained selective financial information, showing only recent operating losses, without addressing underlying debt or tax liabilities. His revival strategy featured expensive equipment upgrades and marketing campaigns, with no clear return metrics. The funding request had mysteriously increased to $250,000 since Sunday brunch. We will need the investment by next Tuesday to secure the new distribution partner, Bradley concluded confidently. I have arranged for the bank transfer details. My mother added emotional weight. We have always believed in you, Irene. Your success makes us so proud, and now you can help secure the family future, just as we secured yours during childhood. The room fell silent as everyone turned expectantly toward me. The pressure was palpable. Decades of family expectations focused into this single moment. I took a deep breath and opened my briefcase. I have conducted a thorough financial analysis based on complete Vineyard records, I began, passing copies of my printed report to everyone. The situation is considerably more serious than presented. I connected my laptop to the television screen and displayed a series of financial charts that left no room for interpretation. The Vineyard required not $250,000, but a minimum of $650,000 for viable recovery. Even with that investment, success remained uncertain given market conditions and damaged industry relationships. Most concerning are the unpaid payroll taxes, totaling $85,000 plus penalties, I explained, highlighting the relevant documentation. The IRS can seize property assets regardless of any new investment. Gasps and murmurs filled the room. My parents exchanged alarmed glances that confirmed they had not known the full extent of the financial disaster. Bradley shifted uncomfortably but maintained his defensive posture. Furthermore, any investment would require complete management restructuring and operational oversight that would fundamentally change family roles, I continued. The current management practices are directly responsible for the financial decline. Bradley's face flushed red. Easy for you to criticize from your office tower in Chicago. You know nothing about running a vineyard. I know about financial viability, I replied calmly, and I have consulted industry experts who confirm my assessment. I transitioned to my alternative proposal, displaying the property valuation and sales projection. The vineyard land itself remains valuable. A properly managed sale would yield approximately $1.4 million after debts are satisfied. This would provide retirement security for our parents and capital for new ventures better aligned with current skills and market realities. My father shook his head vehemently. We will not sell the family legacy. Your grandfather built this vineyard from nothing. Grandfather built a thriving business through sound management and financial discipline, I countered. Those principles have been abandoned in recent years. I then displayed photos of my mountain cabin, explaining my personal investment strategy. I have worked 12 years for financial security and independence. This cabin represents sound financial planning and personal well-being. The contrast between my responsible financial choices and the vineyard mismanagement was stark. My transparency about my own finances highlighted the lack of transparency in the vineyard operations. The reaction was explosive. My father stood up shouting about betrayal and selfishness. After everything this family has done for you, this is how you repay us? My mother wept silently, using tears as she had throughout my childhood when direct confrontation failed. Bradley dramatically knocked over a row of wine bottles displayed on the credenza, creating a purple stain on the carpet that spread like the financial bleeding that had drained the business. You think you are better than us? With your fancy title and city apartment, Bradley spat. You abandoned the family years ago. We do not need your charity. I remained composed, despite the emotional chaos, having anticipated exactly this reaction. This is not about charity. It is about financial reality and responsible stewardship. The vineyard cannot survive in its current form, regardless of my investment. I proceeded methodically through the remainder of my presentation, explaining the vineyard's true financial state with projections, showing that even with my $200,000, failure remained inevitable, without fundamental changes that the family seemed unwilling to make. Extended family reactions varied widely. The older generation appeared horrified by my refusal to immediately write a check to preserve tradition. Several cousins, however, nodded thoughtfully at the financial analysis, recognizing the validity of my assessment. Aunt Patricia challenged me directly. You would let your parents lose everything when you have the means to help them? My proposal prevents them from losing everything, I explained patiently. The current path guarantees complete loss within 12 to 18 months. A strategic sale now preserves value before the situation deteriorates further. As the argument intensified, I gathered my materials and stood up. I understand this is painful to hear. Please review the analysis when emotions are less raw. My financial assessment and recommendation stand. I cannot invest in a business model that is fundamentally unsustainable. I walked out despite protests and recriminations, needing air and perspective. My feet carried me automatically to the old oak tree, where I had often hidden as a child when family dynamics became overwhelming. The massive branches still provided the same sense of shelter they had 25 years earlier. I sat beneath the tree for nearly an hour, processing the confrontation and reinforcing my resolve. The financial reality was inarguable, though the emotional reality remained messy and painful. I had broken the unspoken family contract by refusing to sacrifice my financial well-being on the altar of Bradley mismanagement. As twilight settled over the vineyard, Uncle Patrick unexpectedly joined me under the oak. The oldest of my father brothers, he had remained silent during the meeting, observing rather than participating in the emotional manipulation. "Your grandfather would have agreed with your assessment," he said quietly, settling beside me on the grass. "He built this place on sound numbers, not wishful thinking." The Vineyard succeeded because he understood business fundamentals, not just winemaking. His unexpected support provided validation I had not realized I needed. Uncle Patrick had always maintained emotional distance from family drama, which made his perspective particularly valuable. "Bradley has been running this place like his personal piggy bank for years," he continued. "Your parents enable him because admitting failure feels worse than financial ruin. You are the only one with the courage to speak the truth." We sat in companionable silence watching darkness envelop the vineyard. The property remained beautiful despite its financial troubles, which made the situation all the more tragic. With proper management, it could have remained viable for generations. "Whatever happens next, you have done the right thing," Uncle Patrick said as we finally stood to leave. "Financial reality does not disappear because we ignore it. Better to face it on your terms than have it forced upon you." His words strengthened my resolve as I returned to the guest cottage to pack my belongings. I would depart for Chicago in the morning, leaving my family to process the harsh financial truths I had delivered. Whether they would accept those truths remained to be seen, but I had fulfilled my responsibility by providing honest analysis rather than enabling further financial delusion. 3 weeks passed with no contact from my immediate family after I returned to Chicago. My presentation had shattered their narrative about the vineyard viability and my role in its rescue. The silence felt both painful and necessary, allowing everyone space to process difficult truths. During this period, I closed on the mountain cabin purchase and spent a weekend setting up basic furnishings. The property offered exactly what I had hoped: peaceful surroundings, investment potential, and a sense of personal achievement. Each morning, I sat on the small deck with coffee, watching sunrise over the mountains without family expectations clouding the experience. The first tentative communication arrived in the form of a text message from my mother. "Thinking of you." Simple but significant, given the emotional chasm created by the confrontation. I responded with equal simplicity. "Thinking of you too. Hope you are well." This exchange opened a narrow channel of communication that gradually expanded. My father began sending brief updates about personal matters unrelated to the vineyard. Neither mentioned my financial analysis or the property future, but the reconnection itself represented progress. In the 4th week, I received an unexpected call from my parents' financial advisor, Martin. With my parents' permission, he had reviewed my analysis and conducted his own investigation of the vineyard finances. "I want you to know that your assessment was entirely accurate," he said. "I have recommended they pursue a strategic sale before the tax situation forces involuntary liquidation. They are beginning to accept this reality, though the emotional adjustment remains difficult." This professional validation provided relief. I had feared my analysis might contain errors or overlooked alternatives that could have made investment viable. Confirmation from a trusted outside source helped ease the lingering guilt about refusing to provide financial rescue. Bradley remained hostile, sending one accusatory email blaming me for destroying the family legacy. I chose not to respond, recognizing that engagement would only fuel his defensiveness. His girlfriend Amy connected with me on professional social media the following week, discreetly inquiring about marketing positions in Chicago. The vineyard revival clearly appeared less certain to insiders than the public narrative suggested. 4 months after the confrontation, my parents finally made the difficult decision. The vineyard was listed for sale with a reputable agricultural property broker specializing in wine country transitions. The listing description emphasized the property history and land value, while acknowledging the business required revitalization by new ownership. My mother called the evening the listing went live online. "Your father and I have been meeting with a financial counselor," she admitted. "We realize we enabled patterns that were unsustainable. It has been a difficult reckoning." This acknowledgement represented significant personal growth. My parents had begun addressing not just the financial issues, but the family dynamics that contributed to them. My father joined the call briefly to add, "You were right about the numbers. I was too close to see it clearly." Bradley's initial reaction to the sale listing involved blame and anger, but reality eventually penetrated his defenses. Faced with undeniable financial evidence and the removal of parental safety nets, he enrolled in business management courses at the local community college. The structured education provided what years of preferential treatment had not: actual business skills and accountability measures. My own healing journey progressed through therapy sessions focused on family dynamics and childhood patterns. Journaling helped process residual anger about decades of favoritism and unfair expectations. Distance provided perspective that would have been impossible from within the family system. I established clear boundaries around financial discussions, making certain topics explicitly off-limits during family communications. Several extended family members who had witnessed the confrontation reached out individually in the months that followed. Many expressed private support for my position, revealing their own concerns about Bradley management that they had been hesitant to voice. These connections created a network of family relationships, independent of the Vineyard drama, based on mutual respect rather than obligation or financial entanglement. 6 months after my refusal to invest, I invited trusted friends to the mountain cabin for a housewarming weekend. We hiked nearby trails and enjoyed simple meals on the deck, celebrating friendships based on genuine connection rather than shared DNA or financial expectations. The contrast between this healthy social environment and the Vineyard toxicity reinforced the wisdom of my decision. 8 months after listing, the Vineyard sold to a regional wine collective that specialized in rehabilitating struggling vineyards. The sale price covered existing debts and provided my parents with modest retirement funds, considerably less than proper management would have yielded, but enough for basic security. The new owners retained the Hartwell name as a historical nod, while implementing complete operational restructuring. My parents' gradual acceptance of the necessary sale opened possibilities for relationship healing. During their first visit to my Chicago apartment, we established new interaction patterns without Vineyard business dominating every conversation. My mother expressed interest in my work for the first time, asking thoughtful questions about my career path and professional challenges. My father acknowledged the discipline required for my financial independence, finally recognizing achievements he had previously dismissed. Bradley's eventual half-apology arrived 10 months after the confrontation. "I still believe we could have saved it with your investment," he wrote, "but I recognize the business had problems I was not addressing effectively." This represented significant progress from someone who had never previously acknowledged any personal responsibility for outcomes. The experience taught me profound lessons about the difference between genuine support and enabling behavior. Financial assistance that perpetuates unhealthy patterns ultimately harms rather than helps, regardless of family pressures or emotional manipulation. True family loyalty involves honest assessment and appropriate boundaries rather than unlimited financial sacrifice. My financial independence required protecting, not because money mattered more than family, but because independence itself represented personal growth and healthy separation from dysfunctional systems. The Vineyard sale, while painful, ultimately benefited everyone by forcing confrontation with financial reality and unsustainable family dynamics. The most valuable insight emerged gradually. Breaking generational patterns requires courage and willingness to weather emotional storms. By refusing to participate in financial enabling, I had disrupted unhealthy family systems that had persisted for decades. This disruption, though initially viewed as betrayal, created space for more authentic relationships based on mutual respect rather than financial dependence. Today, my relationship with my family continues evolving toward healthier patterns. The mountain cabin provides both financial security and personal sanctuary when family interactions become challenging. Most importantly, I no longer measure my worth through family approval or sacrifice my well-being to meet unreasonable expectations. Have you ever faced family pressure to fund someone's business venture or bail out a relative financially? What boundaries did you establish to protect yourself while maintaining relationships? Leave a comment below, sharing your experience. And if this story resonated with you, please subscribe and hit the like button so more people can learn about setting healthy financial boundaries with family. Thank you for listening to my journey from financial guilt to empowered independence.